I've been following the draft for a while, and I've even been making NBA draft content as early as back in 2018 on my Six Rings of Steel channel. And over on this channel, we have been deeply following the last few NBA drafts. I think the 2026 NBA draft is by far the best one I've covered and scouted. It is unreal. We're even seeing like unprecedented levels of tanking this season because of how loaded the top of the 2026 NBA draft class really is, because you can't really go wrong with any of the top 3 prospects, as they do feel like they could be franchise-altering prospects. Usually in one draft, it's 1, maybe 2. 2025, you had Cooper Flagg, and then you have Con Knipple, Edgecombe, Dylan Harper. Some good pieces, but maybe don't have as high of a ceiling as Cooper Flagg. 2024, we didn't really have any of those top-tier prospects. 2023, we had Wemby. 2022, it was Paolo, Chet, and Jabari Smith Jr. Some have worked out, some haven't. 2021 was like the last loaded draft, and I think the 2026 draft class can rival 2021 as the best draft class this decade. And I kind of just want to talk about again with you guys why I think this draft class can be generational in some different aspects, because when you're looking at top tier talent, if there's a clear big 3, I think this can beat out 2022's. I think this can definitely beat out 2021's big 3, and even 2020 at the time of the draft happening. So AJ Dybantsa might actually be the best college wing scoring prospect we have seen since Kevin Durant back at Texas in 2007. This year, AJ Dybantsa for a BYU team in the best conference in the Big 12 is shooting 53% from the field, 35% from 3, and 75% from the free throw line, and he's getting to the free throw line 8.5 times a night as a freshman. He's averaging 24.4 points as a freshman. That is mind-blowing. 6.5 rebounds, 3.8 assists. Now, if you look at some of his numbers against top-tier defenses in college basketball, the advanced numbers drop, the efficiency drops as well, and he just lost one of his best teammates in Richie Saunders. He's out for the year with an ACL tear, so AJ Dybantsa is going to have to even pick up a bigger offensive workload if BYU wants to go further along in the March Madness tournament. But Dybantsa really maps out as somebody that can translate seamlessly to the NBA level. 6'9", 210 listed on BYU's website. We'll see how he's listed as the combine, but arguably the best athlete that we're going to talk about here in the top 10 of this draft. Definitely the best athlete, in my opinion, out of the top 3. You can make an argument versus Darren Peterson, who's the better athlete between the two, but Dybantsa can get downhill with extreme ease. He can settle for pull-up jumpers, but he also doesn't have to settle as well, because he could throw it down on you. He could finish with contact around the rim, or he could just get to the free throw line, somebody that's getting there over 8 times a night. He's an inconsistent 3-point shooter at times. You would like for the volume to be a little bit higher, but I'm fully bought into the jumper and the mechanics and the form. It's a quick release as well, and Dybantsa could honestly average over 20 points per game as a rookie, and could honestly make an argument for going number 1 in any draft that we have seen in the last decade outside of 2023, because Wemby was a generational prospect, and you can't go wrong if you select AJ Dybantsa at 1, 2, or 3 in this draft. And the other elite forward in this class, Cameron Boozer. Now, he's in that tweener size right now. He's 6'9". I don't think he could be a good enough rim protector to play the 5 at the NBA level, unless you have a stud power forward defender next to him. Maybe it's somebody like Jaren Jackson Jr., or maybe it's somebody like Cooper Flagg, depending who is picking in the top 3. But Boozer has the most decorated resume out of anybody here in the top 3 between Dybantsa or Peterson, and he just wins and produces and performs at every level he's been at in high school, in the Olympics, and now in his freshman year at Duke, where he's averaging 23 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists a night as a freshman. He could win the National Player of the Year award this season for the Blue Devils. He's shooting 57% from the field, 39% from 3 on about 4 attempts a night, and 76% from the free throw line. You can make an argument Boozer is a better 3-point shooter than Dybantsa. Now, I trust Dybantsa's form and his quick release a little bit more than Boozer if one of them is going to be a high volume elite 3-point shooter at the NBA level, because Boozer is a little bit more methodical with his 3-point jumpers. He likes to kind of move into them a little bit slower than Dybantsa, and can't really shoot as well over defenders, but Boozer has such a skilled touch around the rim. He's a fantastic ball handler for somebody at 6'9". He can catch the ball out of the short roll and either put the ball on the ground and get to the rim. He has a nice floater, or he can kick it out to the corner as well, because he's got tremendous court vision for somebody of his size. I don't think he's a negative defender by any means either, and I'm really excited to see him in an NBA defensive system where he's going to have stud athletes around him. He's not going to have to carry this insane offensive workload, at least right away, and we could see him be a positive defender out of the gate. I think he's got the highest floor out of Dybantsa and Darren Peterson, maybe the lowest ceiling out of the three based on their archetypes. He's maybe not as impressive as an athlete, but he's still a really good athlete in this class. And he would also go #1 overall in a lot of different draft classes as well. It's tough to compare him and Cooper Flagg. I think Flagg would go ahead of him, but he would go #1 over Zachary Reese-Shea. He would go #1 over Paolo Banchero, in my opinion. This is a better Duke Blue Devils power forward prospect than Paolo from that 22 class. He would go #1 over Anthony Edwards. You can make an argument for Cade Cunningham and definitely Zion Williamson, but Boozer's an absolute stud, and you can't go wrong with him either. And now here's the most polarizing prospect out of the big three, and this is going to be the larger picture that I want to talk about in this video as well, the loaded guard class. And it's obviously headlined by Darren Peterson, who's got an unfortunate nickname of DNP right now because Peterson has missed a ton of time this year for the Kansas Jayhawks with lower body injuries, and most recently he was out with the flu against an undefeated Arizona team at home, a game in which they won without Darren Peterson. Because if Peterson can stay healthy, he should be the #1 overall pick in this draft, in my opinion. He's a phenomenal ball handler. He's got a quick twitch. He can get to the rim and blow by you with absolute ease. He's shooting 48% from the field this year, 41% from three on 6.5 attempts a night. I could see a true Anthony Edwards shooting progression from somebody like Darren Peterson. 80% from the free throw line, around 5 attempts a night, 4 rebounds. Now he's only averaging 1.5 assists, and that's more by the style of play that I think Kansas has him in their system, where it's a lot of iso ball. He's not really setting up teammates whatsoever, and a lot of plays are designed for him to score the basketball, not for him to set up maybe a Trey White or a Melvin Council or a Bryson Tiller or a Flory Badunga in this class. And Peterson is going to be a score-first shooting guard at the NBA level. He's going to be somebody that I think can average over 25 points per game one day. Yeah, you got to worry about the health a little bit because of how noticeable it's been this year in the collegiate season, and maybe you're going to question his love for the game of basketball like people did with Anthony Edwards back in the 2020 class, and now they're looking a little bit silly today. I think Peterson, if he's healthy and he doesn't completely fall off a cliff throughout the second half of the collegiate season, will go #1 overall in the 2026 NBA draft. I'm just hoping he's playing in the March Madness tournament and there's not an injury that keeps him out while Kansas is trying to make a run, because he could definitely win the national title this year. Same with Cam Boozer at Duke. I'm a little skeptical about BYU actually making a run, especially after the Richie Saunders injury. But when was the last time we saw a top prospect win the national title game? Last year, it was Florida. They had Walter Clayton. They had Elijah Martin and Will Richards. Now Cooper Flagg and Duke almost made it, but I wonder if we can actually see a top prospect win it all. And what I said about Dybantsa and Boozer stays the same here with Peterson, that he would go #1 overall in a lot of classes over the last few seasons. So that's just kind of where I wanted to start off with this loaded guard class, because if your team needs a point guard or a shooting guard going forward in this year's NBA draft class, you are in luck because it is loaded. This could actually rival the 2018 guard class as the deepest one we've seen. And back in 2018, where it had Luka, Trae Young, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Colin Sexton, Jalen Brunson, DiVincenzo, a lot of those names weren't super hyped up on the night of the 2018 draft. Like Jalen Brunson fell to the second round as well. Anthony Simons, a good guard player from that class, went outside the lottery, and this year we might actually see 5 or so guards go in the top 10. So you start off with Darren Peterson, and now you have maybe the highest floor prospect out of the guard class in Kingston Flemings from Houston, a tenacious defender, somebody that is going to pick you up 90 feet from the basket and is going to make you very uncomfortable, but he's also a very skilled offensive player. He's shooting 49% from the field this year for the Houston Cougars, 36% from three. He's a good free throw shooter. I like the form. He's able to hit really difficult shots as a pull-up jump shooter. 16 points, 5 assists, and 3.5 rebounds on the season. He's 6'4", 190, and I think as he gets stronger and more physical, this guy is going to be a two-way player at the NBA level, and he's another guy that could end up going #4 or #5 or #6 in this draft class, and I don't think there's many weaknesses to his game. You could maybe question his free throw rate, his three-point rate, but I think he's going to be just fine at the NBA level because Houston has this very specific offensive system where it's not always going to be Kingston Flemings every single night. It could be an Emmanuel Sharp. It could be a JoJo Tugler or Miles Uzander or Chris Sinak. Like, everybody's going to get involved. They are going to share the rock there under Kelvin Sampson, and I think Kingston Flemings is going to be an absolute stud prospect. And then my point guard one going into the year, because I had Peterson more as a combo guard, Mikal Brown Jr. Mikal Brown Jr. got off to a really slow start this year for Louisville. He was not knocking down his threes, and he was dealing with some injuries. But over Mikal Brown Jr.'s last few games, he's really showing everybody that he could be the second best guard in this draft class outside of Darren Peterson. He absolutely was on fire against NC State, where he went 14 of 23 from the field, 10 of 16 from three, and had 45 points as a freshman. And then he followed that up against Baylor with 29 points as well, and he knocked down 4 threes, and that three-point jumper is looking better and better by the day. His efficiency is creeping up now where you want it to be. Now over 40% from the field, almost 34% from three on 7.5 attempts a night. I think he's quick enough to guard guys on the perimeter. He's big enough as well. Another guy that can be justified with a top 7 pick. And what about maybe the biggest riser up there with Kingston Flemings this year? Keaton Waggler at Illinois. Waggler was not on many draft boards going into the year. I would actually be surprised if there was a draft board that had Waggler as a top 45 pick that maybe wasn't an Illinois fan. But Waggler at 6'6" has been an absolute stud offensive scorer this year. He's not the greatest athlete in the world. Now he's very quick with the ball in his hands and as an off-ball mover. He's not going to throw it down on you. He doesn't have maybe that posterizing material that some of these other guards do have in this class, but he's shooting 46% from the field. Waggler could definitely be a offensive hub at the NBA level. You'd like for him to get a little bit more stronger. Maybe you're worried a little bit about that tweener position as well. Can he be a good enough defender on the perimeter? Because he's not the most physically gifted guy out there. But this man is knocking down big time shots. He can get to his shots with ease as well. 43% from three on 6 attempts a night, 46% from the field, 80% from the free throw line on about 6 attempts a night also. Just another guy in this loaded guard class, along with Waggler Cuff of Arkansas. So he's definitely the smallest guard that we're going to talk about here. That could be potentially a top 10 pick, but this man could actually be an elite 4 general at the NBA level. He's listed at 6'3", 190 pounds. He's going to be 19 years old on the night of the 2026 draft. And he got off to maybe also a slower start at Arkansas, or really wasn't on the eyes of a lot of people that could go in the top 10. But how can you not have this guy as a top 10 prospect right now? I was lower and maybe later to the party that I should have been on Waggler Cuff at the start of the season, but through over 25 games this year, 50% from the field, 43% from three, 78% from the free throw line, 21 points and 6 assists. He's a Calipari guard there at Arkansas. He produces stud guards at the NBA level, and he's also been on a tear as of late. 31 against LSU, 22 against Kentucky, 24 against Mississippi State, 28 against LSU, and recently had 31 points, 7 assists, and just 1 turnover as the lead guard against Auburn. He knocked down 7 threes. Yes, he's a little bit of a smaller guard out there. I think he's going to be just fine at the NBA level. And maybe another guard that I love in this class that's maybe been trending downwards a little bit as of late, LeBaron Philon of the Alabama Crimson Tide. He's had some inefficient games as of late and really hasn't had the best shot selection. Alabama's been a little bit disappointing this year. You could say Philon is still averaging 21 points, 5 assists, shooting 51% from the field, 40% from three, and 77% from the free throw line. I don't really love his defense on the perimeter, but he's also asked to be like by far the #1 offensive weapon. And I think he's also in that tweener position as well. Can he be a good enough point guard facilitator at the NBA level, or is he gonna have to play up to the shooting guard spot? But I don't really love him guarding guys on the perimeter, especially those bigger wings. Either way though, this guy is going to be a stud offensive talent. And then how about maybe the most interesting point guard prospect here? Philon was the oldest guy we talked about as a sophomore. How about Bennett Sturts, a senior who's gonna be 22 years old on the night of the 2026 draft. He's helping Iowa be a ranked team this year in the Big Ten. He's averaging 20 points, 4.7 assists, and also insanely efficient. 51% from the field, 40% from three, and 83% from the free throw line. He's only turning over the ball 1.8 times a night, which is insane for somebody with a 26% usage rate. And he's also been on a tear as of late as well. 27 points against Indiana, 32 points against Oregon, 36 against Northwestern, 32 points against Maryland as well. And he's not going to make a lot of mistakes out there for you. He might not go in the top 10 just based off his age and maybe his limited athleticism and his defensive ability, but this man has a very high floor, being a good point guard in the NBA for a long time. One of the best stories in this class as well. So that kind of wraps out just an elite guard class in general. All these guys could definitely end up being lottery picks, and that's not even me mentioning Braylon Mullins at UConn, who has the potential on being one of the best shooters in this class. What about Braden Burries at Arizona? He's kind of in that tweener spot right now, maybe that Colin Sexton archetype going into the league at 6'4". Is he a point guard? Is he a shooting guard? Well, he's also shooting 37% from three this year, 50% from the field for a top 5 team in the country. And I think Tyler Tanner could also end up being a first-round pick. Now, he's the smallest guard out of all these guys right now, 6 foot, 175 pounds. I think a similar size to maybe Jason Richardson, who was a first-rounder out of Michigan State last year. The combine might not be kind to Tyler Tanner, but this guy gets it done, even with his limitations on the basketball floor with his height. 18 points this year, 85% from the free throw line, 37% from three. He's been a stud sophomore this year for a good Vanderbilt team in a wide open SEC conference. So I just love this guard class, and I think it can end up rivaling 2018's. And I just went this whole video without talking about Caleb Wilson, a stud freshman at the University of North Carolina. Now, unfortunately, he just suffered a wrist injury, which may rule him out for the rest of the regular season at least. He has been a stud UNC prospect, definitely the best UNC prospect we have seen in quite some time, better than Kobe White, Cole Anthony, Drake Powell, Cam Johnson, Walker Kessler, any of those guys. Wilson has been dominant this year on the defensive end of the floor. He has one of the highest motors in this class. He's going to fly around all over the place. He's averaging 20 points, 9.5 rebounds, about 3 stocks a night, shooting 57% from the field. Now, I don't love Caleb Wilson's shot whatsoever. I think it's going to be a work in progress 100%, but this guy is also going to be a productive player at the NBA level who's going to dive for loose balls. He's going to take a charge and really help you win basketball games at the end of the day. I think it's also a fascinating center class as well, because there's not really a true elite center prospect in this draft, because Cameron Boozer is not really a center out there. Jaden Queenance has not really had the most impactful season whatsoever. It's really been plagued by injuries and his recovery from that ACL tear. Hans Steinbeck also doesn't really wow me as a defensive prospect this year at Washington, so that maybe leaves an opening for Patrick Gungba at Duke to be the #1 center drafted. Chris Sinak, if he's going to really kind of lean into that rim protection, 3-point shooting center ability coming out of Houston, will he kind of adapt to that style with his great wingspan and good offensive touch from 3? Malachi Moreno has maybe emerged as one of the better center prospects in this draft as well. 7 feet, 250 pounds at Kentucky, has actually been taking advantage of the opportunities as the starting center with the Jaden Queenance durability issues. And I think this is going to be a really good draft class too for these role-playing wings. Now, Nate Ament is somebody that is not maybe a role-playing wing. He's got high upside, maybe a lower floor in this class, but guys like Thomas Houck, Dalen Swain at Texas, Joshua Jefferson at Iowa State, Kareem Lopez from the NBL, who's probably the best international prospect in this draft, Amari Allen from Alabama, and Juke Harris from Wake Forest have a really good chance at staying in the NBA for 5 to 10 years in design roles that are guys that can kind of come in for 8 to 15 minutes a night and really give you something on the defensive end as a floor spacer, as a cutter, slasher, somebody that's going to set good screens. And I think this has a chance on being the best draft class I have covered head to toe. Last year kind of still looks like it's a top heavy draft class a little bit. The non-moderate picks and maybe even some of the second rounders I don't think are maybe going to be as good as we may originally thought of pre-draft, but I think this year, as the 3-headed monster at the top of the class with Peterson, Dybantsa, and Boozer, they have the next tier of guys that could end up being top-tier prospects in Caleb Wilson, one of the guards that I talked about. Maybe Nate Ament really still has this great upside at the end of the day, and I think it's going to have some really good role-playing guards, wings, and bigs outside the lottery and into the second round as well, because we're going to see some really good seniors in this class. I mentioned Richie Saunders at BYU. Alex Karabin at UConn has just been productive as a shooter in his 4 years there. Zuby Ejiofor, Henry Vasar, JoJo Tugler, these guys are going to make impacts at the NBA level, and I'm really excited to see how this draft class plays out. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video, me kind of just hyping up, glazing the 2026 draft class, because I truly think that there's a reason why these teams are tanking, and we are seeing tanking being talked about at such a more frequent level than we've seen in years past, because hey, you might fall to 3 in this draft, but that's okay. You were really landing a stud prospect. It's not like you're just tanking for Wemby and everybody else is a consolation prize. No, there's a good chance the 3rd overall pick this year is better than the #1 overall pick, and I don't think we're really going to know who's going to go where until after the lottery, and maybe it's going to be what 2022 was. We don't know who goes where till the night of the 2026 draft, because you can make an argument for Dybantsa, Boozer, or Peterson to go #1 overall. So I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on this draft class down below. Let me know maybe your top 3 in order. How would you rank those guys? Maybe a sleeper. Hit me in the comments. Love you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.